Chapter 8. An Address by Beloved Mary, Mother of Jesus. Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, 1954. On Importance of Building Force Fields Through Group Activities. Benefits to Incoming Children Through Decrees. More on Holding Immaculate Concept. Finding of Old Mill, which became first focus of Christian Dispensation. Beloved friends of my heart, I bring to you tonight all the love and devotion with which I once cared for a small child. To you I bring the blessings of this holy season as we open the magnificent cosmic currents which have flowed through your conscious endeavors and dedicated force fields as an open door to bless all the sons and daughters of God who know not yet the way to the Father's throne. Your blessed hands, your sweet hearts, and your gentle spirits hold open the doors to the kingdom. Have you thought of that? Have you realized in its fullness what it means to magnetize those spiritual currents of energy from above, which form a force field? Through your heartbeat, beloved ones, flows the primal substance of life. Through free will, you have chosen to give that life to the magnetizing of the angelic host, the cherubic beings, the seraphic kingdom, the cosmic masters and divas, and those individual consciousnesses who dwell in what has been called for centuries the kingdom of heaven. These beings do not concentrate their energies earthward except through conductors. Such conductors are consecrated, unascended life streams who magnetize the Master's energies and form the open door through which blessings tremendously subtle and currents extremely vibrant enter into the atmosphere and the mental and feeling worlds of mankind. These unusual benedictions could never reach the slower vibrating action of the outer consciousness if there were not embodied step-down transformers in the form of individual consciousnesses who are yet a part of the race. So each one of you whose vital energies, week after week, month after month, year after year, have magnetized the presence of the eternal God-free, has formed a jewel of blazing light in the heart of this great metropolis. From the center of this blazing jewel has flowed forth to the millions of people who live here blessings, purification, and spiritual upliftment of which your dear outer selves will never be conscious until you stand with me in the God-free realm. Then you may look back at the record which has been written by your own lives and see the pure energy that has replaced the effluvia of those who yet know not how to control thought and feeling. Magnificent indeed is the consciousness of an embodied Sheila, who can even believe in our presence in this universe, and most blessed are they who, in believing, weave the substance and energy of their own lives into an activity which is of benefit to the race. Do you know how many children are born every 24 hours within the 100-mile radius covered by the center of your force field? Do you know how many bodies are fashioned by the builders of form? Do you know how many come in with much clearer sight, more perfect hearing, and better use of their faculties because of your constant, unbroken, rhythmic calls? Do you know how many children do embody in each year with vehicles and envelopes through which the Holy Christ Self can externalize its divine plan, where otherwise they would have been born idiotic or in all manner of distress? Is it not worth the use of your life energy woven into invocation, decree, and song? Some day, in your God-free estate, you will look with joy upon those firm bodies and those strong life streams, those who are to be the builders of the new era, and you will know that your calls and your invocations, morning after morning, have made possible conditions by which a soul is allowed opportunity to fulfill its divine plan in dignity, with head erect, body firm and pure, and mind clear. Otherwise, these same life streams would have been destined to live a whole life through in darkness or confusion. Oh, beloved ones, I have fashioned with my own hands the substance of your very hearts. I have stood each year before all those who are to embody in that 12-month cycle. I have seen the pitiful elemental substance charged with impurity and imperfection through the mistakes of past lives. Therefore, I can tell you what a mercy it is to these individuals when you call forth the violet fire for them, as they hold the best substance they have earned through millions of years of living, and offer that to me for a heart. Well, as I look upon it and think, is this the best that soul can offer? Many times that violet fire rises from your groups at your call and passes through the substance, even as it is held within the trembling hand of the soul itself. Thus, instead of an impure garment, mercy and the kindness of embodied life streams make it possible for us to give them added opportunity, an opportunity for redemption and service that they would not otherwise have earned. I tell you, then does my heart swell with a mother's pride for incarnate children who can and do draw and wield the sacred fire, sending that fire forth impersonally on behalf of life streams whom they do not even know exist. It is one thing, beloved, to work for those for whom you feel a close heart tie, but to work impersonally for the great body of mankind, that shows the cosmic nature of your own developed causal body, and that is the hope of this shadow planet, Earth, which we are endeavoring to fashion into Freedom's star. Beloved friends of love and light, as the beloved Moira and I close our year, 1954, as sponsors for mankind, I would like to thank you personally for the opportunity of recording through your energies in this force field a few of the personal memories of my experiences following the passing of my son into his eternal freedom. This gift which you have enabled me to give to you by opening the door through your love, your magnetization, and your attention, you, in turn, will give to mankind. The Memoirs of Mary will become the thanksgiving gift of your blessed selves to the earth. I am grateful indeed for this opportunity. During the ministry of the beloved Jesus, as I have told you briefly, my mission was to hold for him the Immaculate Concept of his own divinity. In preparation for this, I had trained many centuries. In the elemental kingdom between embodiments, I had taught the elemental beings how to hold the pattern of a flower, a tree, a shrub. I had passed through the initiations enabling me to hold a concentrative thought which no force or distraction from within myself or from without could cause me to dissipate. Previous to earning the right to become the guardian and the mother of the beloved Jesus, I stood, as all do who are to render cosmic service, before the great initiator, beloved Lord Maitreya, who is also the sponsor for your magnificent city. He was the teacher and guru of my son. As I have told you, for 3 hours at inner levels, I held the divine image of the Holy Christ against every conceivable directed force which was endeavoring to dissipate that pattern. At the end of that initiation, I was given the right to embody and await the coming of my beloved Son. Throughout my earth life, as you know, from the age of 3 on, my whole being was dedicated and consecrated wholly to God, and I prepared for and awaited the hour when my mission would begin in earnest. The beloved Gabriel, Archangel of the Immaculate Concept, in his great kindness promised to come and flash again into my outer consciousness the reality of the mission I was to fulfill, and a picture of the perfection of the Christ. Gabriel had promised to give me this assistance when I would require his help the most. You all recall the coming of that great one and the confirmation of the benediction of God which took place before Jesus' birth. During the entire life of our Master, both Joseph and myself remained one-pointed in the holding of that concept for Jesus. His senses, you will recall, were most highly developed, his power of sight, his power of hearing, his thought and feeling. Naturally, he was the most sensitive instrument embodied at that time. Through those senses, he could draw either the greatest light or through connection with the appearance world, he could draw also the shadow which would blot out the final mastery and victory of his ascension. So we began from very, very early childhood, teaching him the story of the Immaculate Concept and teaching him to magnify only good. On the other hand, in every experience where he was in a position to encounter discord, we nullified that by saying together, "Now we shall not magnify this. Instead, we shall magnify the power of God, the power of good." He grew up in that atmosphere, that radiation of magnifying the good and giving no power, no sense of reality to evil. This momentum took us through even the passing of Joseph. It took us through the years until Jesus' public ministry was to begin. Then our ways parted outwardly, and I devoted myself to a constant novena, you might say, to holding for him that pattern of the victory of life over death itself. Ofttimes during those years when he and the disciples were engaged in the public work, I went up to Bethany. There, with Mary and Martha, I enjoyed a certain peace in the simplicity of the country living. On the outskirts of Bethany, we found an old mill that had been used to grind corn in previous days. I loved to sit there and weave garments for beloved Jesus, tablecloths, napkins, and things of that sort. Once each day I would find myself walking up the small but grassy mound to a great flat-topped rock. There I would spend some hours in deep and earnest communion with the God of light. There I made the application. There I built the momentum and the pattern on which my son was to ascend to his God and mine, in the presence of many people, about 500. In those days I did not know what I builded, but I sent my love and my gratitude to the God of light, and in that rising of the energy from my heart on what was to become later the famous Hill of Bethany, I builded the very ascending flames which were to become the victory of your beloved Master and mine. During this period we thought very little about the time after the victory of the Ascension, because, as I have told you, we were trained one-pointedly upon holding the Immaculate Concept for Jesus. No thought of self entered our minds, nor was there any thought of what we were to do to maintain and sustain the Christian ministry or the faith of the disciples. This may seem strange to you, but it would not seem so if you had been trained in a cosmic current and knew that the victory depended upon the holding of your Immaculate Concept, not only for the one you loved, but for an entire race through that one. As I would walk on that grassy hillside, part of my mind recorded this old mill. It had fallen into some disrepair, and yet the memory of that old mill was to stand me in good stead. For when John and I walked from the hill of Calvary to Bethany, oh, that old mill came to my mind as a possible place of refuge and solace. It seemed to me it could be a focus for the disciples and myself until we could find what we were to do and how we were to do it, through the connection we had with our beloved Jesus. Well do I remember Holy Thursday, after the disciples and the Master had finished the Last Supper and had gone to Gethsemane. The other ladies and I came and gathered together the linen cloth which I had woven, and folded it carefully, knowing in myself that within a day that cloth would enfold the body of my yet vital, shining, and beautiful son. In a napkin we carefully wrapped the cup and gave it to Joseph of Arimathea for safekeeping. That cup was to travel far, and before this weekend is spent, I shall tell you of that journey. The Holy Thursday evening, after we had straightened up the room so that it might be returned to the landlord in perfect order, I engaged in the most heartfelt prayer of which I was capable, for the next day was to bring to me the greatest trial of my life. We shall not dwell on that day because it has passed victoriously. After we had given to Mary and Martha and those who were to anoint Jesus' body the frankincense and myrrh, carefully kept, mind you, from the time of Jesus' birth in a stable many years before, John and I descended the hill into Bethany. There again I held the vigil with the help of the beloved Mahachohan. I held that vigil through those days while the soul of Jesus, separated from the body, passed through the psychic and astral realms and prepared for the glory of his resurrection day. Then, strengthening the disciples with my own faith and with that inner light which came to me from the Master, we began to prepare that old mill for living quarters. James, John, and Peter whitewashed it, fixing the walls and the roof. Here we established the beginning of the first Christian monastery and cloister, you might say. Here, off and on, we abode for some 30 years. Here, after the resurrection morning, every day for 40 days until the Ascension, the beloved Master Jesus came and spoke to the disciples and myself. Because of this, after that glorious triumphant victory on Bethany's Hill, there were happier and more consecrated life streams who entered into that home at the foot of that hill. Then we all prepared to magnetize the living presence of Jesus, and from that simple focus to direct those mighty currents of the risen, victorious Christ through the mental and feeling worlds of all mankind. The story of that service I shall tell you. Beloved ones, a dispensation which governs an entire race at the changing of a cycle of time, as it does in each 2,000 years, such a dispensation is builded on the energies of many and not just one. Even my beloved Jesus, with all the light and power of his presence, could not have rendered that service alone. Beloved Saint Germain, as he now draws the currents for this new day through these group activities and these sanctuaries, is performing the same service that the disciples and I rendered in that day. He is doing this by magnetizing those currents of nourishment for his new era, just as we kept the entire Christian dispensation going through the 2,000 years of Jesus' reign. It is not the work of one man, one woman, nor even of one avatar or one Christ. It is the combined, woven energies of many consecrated life streams. Think you well on the word consecrated. It means the complete dedication of your mind, your spirit, your soul, your thought, your feeling, and of all the organisms of your flesh to drawing forth that nourishment which is to be the sustaining power for a dispensation that will grow in magnificence and glory long after you, humble folk like ourselves, have folded your earth garments around you and passed from the stage of life. If you could look back at these simple efforts to create a garden and to make livable that habitation, if you could have looked at the toil-worn hands and the consciousness of those of us at Bethany, you would be amazed that there ever could have risen the magnificence of the Christian dispensation. It is only the glamour of the ages, beloved ones, that has woven around us a magnificence that we did not then possess. We were humble folk, as I said, like unto yourselves. Now, sometimes feeling that you have not the worth of a task, let me say to you that the number of those who now stand around the mighty ray of Saint Germain are far greater than those who stood with us through the ridicule, through the persecution, through the crucifixion, and through those days afterward when we built the foundation in love for the Master who had come to us, who had persevered and found freedom. So this Thanksgiving morning, on behalf of my beloved Son, on behalf of myself, on behalf of the children that come to earth garmented in whole and perfect bodies, I say, God in heaven bless you. Good morning.